It's exciting to be here at ReFED with CEO of Leanpath, Andrew Shakman. How you doing, Andrew?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here.
It's always great to see you at ReFED. I think you gave the talk 2 years ago or 3 years ago in Minnesota. Yeah. This is a conference you come to, I think, pretty much every year.
I haven't missed one.
How is ReFED changing from your eyes? I mean, it seems like it's growing. Seems like we're bringing more people into the conversation.
Yeah.
What are you seeing?
Okay, I see bigger. Okay. I see more maturity. I see more resources going against the issue. A community that's energized and professionalized, and all of that is terrific. That's positive. I also see a time with a lot of headwinds, and I think some of those are macro, whether that is current political context, but also some of it is about this movement. And I've been reflecting about this in the
When you say movement, the food waste
movement? The food waste movement,
okay.
Yeah. When I think about a journey, if you think of it in 3 acts, you have the beginning, the middle, and the end, right? If we go back to Aristotle's Poetics. And the beginning is always gripping because it's the start.
Yeah.
And the end has all
the middle kind of drags.
The middle's hard. And I think we're in Act 2, where it's no longer the beginning, but we are not at the end.
Okay.
And so how we create meaning, momentum, wins, milestones at this moment is really critical. And I think you're now seeing a bunch of people who had set 2025 goals, who are either going to hit them or miss them a little bit, but they've made progress, and now the question is, what's next? So that's where I see this movement is scaling, achieving, really positive, but also at a moment where how we maintain momentum is going to be critical.
It seems like every part of every conversation I have now, because I'm largely talking about a lot of food tech, is people are thinking about how AI is going to accelerate their goals, how they're going to implement it into their company, how they're going to start a company around AI. You've been at it for a while. You're one of the OG food waste reduction companies using AI. Where do you see this conversation? Because I think there's maybe a lot of AI kind of exaggeration in startups. People are like kind of almost trying to bring it into conversations where they shouldn't. Where do you see the intersection of AI and food waste happening right now? What do you see?
So there is a lot of hype.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of substance, and both can be true.
Okay.
And in food waste, so far, the emergence of AI has been in computer vision.
Yeah.
And we have seen that as the first use case. And I think that is a good use case for identifying wasted food to enable measurement to be done quickly and easily and accurately. And we certainly do that at Leanpath. But I think the more interesting part is how we use AI to drive action. And action is all about looking at data, but also looking at context and being able to come up with what you do next. And one thing that's very clear to me is that chefs, they did not get into food because they wanted to sit in front of their computer and study food waste data or any data. They want to be connecting with people.
They want to touch and make stuff.
Touch, make, connect, and create experience. And they want to know what's the fastest path to taking the most impactful action. And that's where I think AI is going to be very exciting. And we're already seeing it in our product where we're using it to say, hey, do this and talk to your team about that. And this is the big picture. You don't need to look at a graph. We'll just tell you. And then putting that on a phone where they can see it. And they don't have to be in their office. They don't have to be engaging with data. What they need to do is think about action. So I think that's exciting. One of the things that's going to be a little bit of a bump, and if you will, kind of the hard part, is that the AI gets better the more context it has. And we are living in a kitchen tech world of silos. We have so many systems, as you know, that do not talk.
Right.
And until more of them talk, we are deprived of context. And so the way I look at the world right now is that there are several data assets that exist. There are POS data assets for what you've sold. There are inventory data assets around what you bought and maybe what's on your menu. There now are waste data assets, which are actually unique contributors to the data landscape. And with those, when you triangulate with what you sold and what you bought, you now have the ability to see things that you could never see before.
Yeah.
So I think the next step to really unlocking the promise of this is going to be bringing data sources together to create greater context and using AI as the mechanism of that coherence.
I have so many thoughts about that. First, I think there's a little bit of tension, right, between the idea of more people want privacy with all their data assets, but at the same time, once you, like you said, when you break down these silos and allow the triangulation to happen, you unlock a lot. Second, on the chef aspect, yeah, you're right. No one wants to sit. No chef wants to sit in front of their monitor all day. They want to make stuff with their hands. But if you could give them tools that make them better chefs, that could create better experiences for their dining guests, and I think we're going to start seeing that. They'll see the power of it. You give those tools.
I don't think that chefs are in any way averse to using technology.
No.
Maybe a generation ago it was viewed with more suspicion. Not today. I think they just know how busy they are.
Right,
they know that they live in the real world and food has to...
And they know how hard it is to run a restaurant.
That's right, it's hard, and you have to create something that's tangible, and this technology has to be additive. It can't be a distraction, and it can't slow you down in a very demanding environment. So I think it's incumbent on the tech sector to deliver efficient solutions that drive a lot of action. And so that's what we're focused on at Leanpath right now, is how do we drive action?
I mean, the people who get into this space oftentimes are motivated by trying to make the world last longer through sustainability. But there's no doubt one of the advantages that food waste reduction has had is there's a hard cost tied to food. And the less food you waste, the more money you're saving. And so that's a motivation, I think, for a lot of people who may not necessarily care as much about sustainability. So is that continuing to be true? What is the primary motivation for chefs and other parties in the space? Is it saving money as food costs go up, or is it sustainability, or both?
So it's both, but let me talk about the journey. When we started, I've been at this 21 years. It was all about money. It was all about saving money, pulling dollars out of the garbage. It was food productivity, margin expansion, middle of the P&L performance. That was the whole story. And then we came to understand that this was a nexus issue that incorporated issues around climate and food security and land conversion and biodiversity and water resources and everything, right? And so then we began to have a more balanced story. And I think where we are today is we're reverting back to a narrower story that's more focused on business case, simplification, making life as business focused as possible, because the environment we're in right now, there is less unanimity around talking about climate and sustainability and ESG. And so you're seeing kind of a steer back to a little bit of a pared back value proposition, and I am hearing that. And that value proposition in my mind has always been there.
Right.
So
the good thing is you can stealthily push sustainability by saying, hey, let's waste less money because everyone's margins are being constrained, right?
Yes, you have the ability to still have the whole discussion, but I think just the emphasis is more towards the business case at this moment. That being said, I don't think we should allow ourselves to walk away from the moral imperative, the food security elements, the climate elements, because they are very real. And we can be having multiple things can be true at the same time as we do this. And so I think it's really important that we don't allow the issue to get totally flattened down to it's just dollars and cents, because what we have to remember is at the end of the day, the change makers on this issue are the people working in kitchens. And people work from a place of emotion. You can have a great business case, but when I'm in a kitchen talking to a pot washer, or I'm talking to someone working on prep or on the line, what gets them emotionally is what's going to draw their attention. Yeah. And this is an issue that goes beyond dollars and cents.
And honestly, I don't think there's any more powerful advocate for causes in food than the chefs. And if chefs are saying, hey, you need to stop wasting food, you need to be maybe pulling meat off center of plate or whatever, if it's a plant-based conversation, they are such powerful advocates. So you're right, you don't want to disconnect those two. But yeah, it does seem like in the environment we're in, when costs of everything are going up, it makes sense that the primary motivator is cost waste reduction. Real quickly, we're here at ReFED. You've been at this for a while. Leanpath is a really interesting company. I think you guys have been a pioneer. What's in the future for Leanpath? What are you guys kind of excited about? What are you guys building for the future?
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about AI, and of course, I think everyone right now should be looking to leverage this new frontier, because the tools are powerful and exciting, and there's so much we can do with them. So that's a big part of where we're going. Secondly, we recognize that there's two games you have to win around food waste. There's a game in the kitchen, and there's a program management game above the kitchen.
Okay.
If you're talking about enterprises,
Yeah.
big organizations trying to do things at scale. And so you have to have solutions that work in the kitchen, but also the administrative aspect of governing a program and knowing what's working, who's leading, who's not, who's lagging, who needs extra help. So we put a lot of work into building what we think of as kind of the enterprise standard for a food waste management platform, which is not just about measuring
Food waste
waste.
ERP, is that what
Essentially, and we debated whether it was that. There are a lot of people who don't love ERP as
ERP.
We talked about that too, but there's pros and cons of all of it. I think we just came back to this is food waste management. And to do it right, measurement's one piece. It's an enabling piece, but using the data, driving action, governing the programs, that's all a big part of it. The other thing that we're focusing on is events. And we're just recognizing that there's very different dynamics around food waste in an event context versus a normal course operation of food service, and trying to really honor those differences and looking at ways that solutions can better meet the needs of events. So those are some of the things we're talking about. There's obviously a lot more on our list. Plate waste would be one that I think has still not gotten its due, and we continue to develop in that area as well.
Hey, well, Andrew Shakman here at 2025 ReFED. It's always great to catch up with you. Thanks for spending time with me.
Thanks for having me.